check it out. So we've been witnessing people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, try to separate themselves from there's a lot of daylight. There's a power vacuum happening in Washington right now. You have the rogue administration led by Felon 47 and with his top general, Stephen Miller. And then the other things, the federal firings being taken care of by Russ Vought and Project 2025 team. Amidst all of this, there's a power vacuum opening up. And there are people that, like Tucker Carlson, platformed Nick Fuentes, like actual neo-Nazi, right? And got some shit for it. And the Heritage Foundation, the head of the Heritage Foundation came out and said, Tucker Carlson will always be a friend of the Heritage Foundation. So, and just because you criticize the government of Israel doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. I agree with that. That's what I've been saying. Israel's been captured by this far right of their government, just like ours has, and they've perpetrated a genocide against the Palestinian people. And they still want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. So that's still happening. That's still the phase 2 they never agreed to. And even the ceasefire was fucking bullshit. So Trump just had that whole, he ran that victory lap over there in which he had people all over the place calling him a miracle worker for bringing peace to the Middle East. That didn't happen. It wasn't happening at the time. It wasn't purported to happen in the future. And it hasn't happened as of right now. Donald Trump, 8 wars I solved. He hasn't solved any fucking wars. Now they're coming up with more targeted places. So, I mean, when you add like Somalia, Yemen, Greenland, Mexico, I mean, what are the countries you don't want war with? What are the countries you don't want to bomb? What are the countries in which you don't want regime change? Because if you listed them, that would be a shorter list, I think. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he looked like he was just shrinking into his own soul at the beginning of this administration. But it seems like he's taken to this now. He has expanded his push for regime change in Venezuela to include cartel-linked targets in Colombia and Mexico, according to sources in the Trump administration and on Capitol Hill with knowledge of the unfolding situation. Rubio's drive toward war has been predicated on claims that Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro was involved in the drug trade, including trafficking fentanyl to the U.S. They make no fentanyl. Venezuela makes no fentanyl. This whole drug boat murder bullshit is just that. They want regime change because they want the mineral rights and the oil. They want to bring in our our billionaires and our large corporate interests to Venezuela to rebuild their decaying oil sucking out of the ground infrastructure. They want to make that oil production more so that we can steal it from them. That's what they want. Let's say that. We want to go into Venezuela to steal their fucking oil. That's what we want. We've been murdering people in the Caribbean because we want a regime change in Venezuela for the oil. At an Oval Office meeting in early October, Trump administration officials and top generals discussed escalating the pressure on Venezuela to go beyond the semi-regular attacks on boats in the Caribbean, where 14 boats have been struck, killing at least 57 people. The discussed plans included striking on land inside Venezuela. They also previously reported a directive from President Trump, who dialed his special envoy, Richard Grinelli, into the call, telling him to cut off diplomatic communications with Maduro. In the wake of this meeting, the intelligence community was tasked with coming up with a more tangible list of targets on land. The problem, however, was that because of Venezuela's lack of significant involvement in the drug trade, zero fentanyl comes from Venezuela. Zero. If you want to kill drug dealers, what about the Saxman family that single-handedly got United States addicted to opiates? What about that family? Well, they got a slap on the wrist. What about them? You want to go get the CEO of Anheuser-Busch on their yacht in the middle of the ocean? You want to blow them out of the water? What? What do you think? These things are killing Americans. Drugs, prescription drugs are killing Americans. Alcohol kills Americans. Whoa, so concentrate on that. You want to, is that now that's the death penalty for killing Americans with drugs? So why stop there, right? Why stop there? They're going to start saying that United States citizens that deal drugs are now, they're going to be just killed summarily for dealing drugs? Well, that's what he'd love. He'd love that. Because there's just a fine line between saying that it's now the death penalty to kill Americans with drugs. That can happen that could also happen inside America. So watch out, drug dealers. Senator Lindsey Graham, oh my gosh, he was briefed by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, on a new list of hard targets inside Venezuela, Colombia, and Mexico in early October, and lobbied fellow senators on expanding the war to include drug-related sites in Colombia, a source with knowledge of his conversations told DropSite. Graham alluded to his understanding of the battle plans in a recent CBS interview on Face the Nation. Quote, "We're not going to sit on the sidelines and watch boats full of drugs come into this country," Graham said. "We're going to blow them up and kill the people who wanted to poison America. And we're now going to expand our operations, I think, to land. So be clear about what I'm saying today. President Donald J. Trump sees Venezuela and Colombia as direct threats to our country because they house narco-terrorist organizations. President Trump's made a decision that Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, is an indicted drug trafficker, that it's time for him to go, that Venezuela and Colombia have been safe havens for narco-terrorists for too long. Narco-terrorists for too long," Graham continued. "The president told me yesterday that he plans to brief members of Congress when he gets back from Asia about future potential military operations inside Venezuela and Colombia. So there will be a congressional briefing about a potential expanding from the sea to the land." The interviewer noted that Indiana Republican Senator Todd Young had pushed back against this notion. What exactly is the endgame? Because you're talking about regime change in Venezuela. CBS's Margaret Brennan said, "The president says this is about drug boats." "Well, I think the endgame is to make sure that Venezuela and Colombia cannot be used to poison America," Graham said, again adding Colombia to the conversation. Trump on Friday said he was not planning to strike inside Venezuela, contradicting reports he was preparing military targets in Venezuela, as well as his claims from last week when he said the land is going to be next. So he's fucking out of his head. He's out of his head. He's riddled with dementia. He doesn't know what's happening. President Trump, meanwhile, has become convinced that Venezuela is not a source of fentanyl, driving a shift in recent strikes by U.S. military to the Pacific Ocean, targeting alleged traffickers transiting from Colombia to Mexico, undercutting previous justifications for targeting Maduro. Those boats, according to intelligence assessments, may have been carrying cocaine, if anything. And also, they kind of let two of them go when they caught them. Those terrible, dangerous narco-terrorists, just let them go. So, because there's no evidence. There's not any evidence of this. We just want war. What are the wars he solved? Tell me, those 8 wars he solved, name 2. He didn't solve any fucking wars.